Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combaluzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities, Inc. Today's webinar focuses on Strategic Metals Limited, which is a successful project generator with a large portfolio of interests in over 120 properties and share interests in other exploration companies through project farmouts, investments, and royalty sales. Today, I have on the webinar with me Doug Eaton, President, CEO, and Director, and Richard Drexler, Vice President of Communications at Strategic Metals. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts, first of which Doug will provide an introduction to Strategic Metals, including an update on its corporate activities and work plans for 2021. And then in the second part, we'll take questions live. So please send us your questions via the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. And you can type them in at any point throughout the webinar. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. For Strategic Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Strategic Metals corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. For Strategic Metals, I would direct viewers to our online research portal for up-to-date disclosures for the company. So now I'll turn it over to Doug to update you on Strategic Metals and what investors have to look forward to with the company.
Thank you very much, Taylor. I know a lot of people have followed our story for some time. This is going to be a little bit different presentation you've seen before. Part of what we're going to do is focus on some of our other non-precious metal projects. That's in response to the recent rise in price of silver, price of copper, and many of the critical metals, tin, for example. One of the things there's our disclaimer, as I said earlier. One of the things that's important about the company is that we focus in Yukon, Northern BC, and a little bit of Northwest Territories, strongly rooted in North America, obviously, very good, safe jurisdiction. We've had a lot of experience in that area, and we own almost all of our properties 100%. So we're in a very nice situation to capitalize on the new strength of this bull market. What we're going to look at here are a few different aspects of the company. First, we've got a flagship property we did drilling on last year. It was a maiden program, made some great discoveries. We'll talk a little bit about the Mount Hinton project. Then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about some of the other projects. We've got over 100 different projects that we own 100%. Most of them have no underlying royalties attached to them. They cover a really diverse suite of commodities and deposit types, which puts us in a really sweet spot in this market because it doesn't really matter too much to us which of the metals are in vogue at any given moment in time. We can capitalize on the ones that are. We've got pretty much everything covered. A lot of our projects are drill ready and permitted, and again, they cover pretty much everything that's topical at the present time. Then we're going to move on. We'll talk a little bit about our equity portfolio. The company is well financed already with cash, but we also have about $27 million worth of shares of other companies, all for investments. If we get good liquidity, we'll sell some of them if the opportunity arises. We're going to talk about a number of them, but including Terra CO2, a company that's working on a very low CO2 generating cement product. GGL Resources, actively drilling right now with the Gold Point project in Nevada. And Rockhaven Resources, which has got a nice high-grade gold silver project in central BC. Central Yukon. We'll just give you a flavor of different styles of investments we've made. Then beyond that, we'll talk a little bit about our experience in Yukon. I've been there for 50 years. The company that I was with has been operating in Yukon since 1965, so we have a very long history. We've been involved in a lot of the most important gold discoveries, but also discoveries for other metals, including pretty much all the most important porphyry coppers were found by our group. And then finally, we talk a bit about the leverage we have to this bull market. So we want to move on from there, Richard. Okay, very, very quickly, it's on the website. You can always look. A very experienced management team, very stable. I think we do pretty well together. Capital structure, 106 million shares out approximately at the present time, goes to 126 fully diluted. We've got a market cap of about 41 million, $9 million plus in cash, $27 million, as we said, in shares of other companies, and we've got no debt. Good backing from Condir Group out of Dallas, Sprott, and Ruffer. Some good institutional following. Now, we're going to talk first about gold. We're sitting right in the middle of the Northern Cordilleran Gold Province. It's one of the most significant gold provinces in the world now. It's got the interest of a lot of majors, most recently Newmont, of course, who's made the takeover bid for GT, but it includes Barrick and Kinross and Newcrest. A lot of big groups involved. We're sitting right in the heart of it in northern BC and Yukon. Geology extends into Alaska and down into northern BC. Includes the Golden Triangle and some very significant deposits in Alaska, including Fairbanks Gold and Pebble. Anyway, so it's well located. Our Mount Hinton property is part of that package. Where it's shown on the slide on the left in red, that's the Mount Hinton claims. It directly adjoins the ground that's owned by Keno Hill, Alexco, owning the Keno Hill area in purple. And just a little to the northwest of that, in a yellowy color, is the Victoria Gold Ground, where they've got the Eagle Mine now in operation. For people who don't realize that Alexco recently put their operations back into production in November of 2020. We made an interesting discovery in the central part of our property a couple of years ago. Very, very high-grade gold, very unusual, not typical of the Keno Hill district. In fact, one of the samples was over 2,000 grams per ton gold. Many of the samples have silver with them. We decided last year that we would drill to follow it up. We did 7,000 meters of drilling. Richard, you want to advance me there? Okay, so what we were doing is following up geochem anomalies in what we call the Granite Creek Basin. It became very attractive to us when some very important placer discoveries were made down at the foot of the cirque that most of our anomalies are in. And as we followed the work up, again, we made prospecting discoveries in a number of areas. The northern structural corridors, where most of the traditional veins were known. The Granite North Zone is where we found that very high-grade mineralization with visible gold in it. And the Southwest Zone is something that we showed up very well on the soil geochem. And when we prospected, we found some very strong veins that the old-timers hadn't either recognized the significance of or hadn't reported. There was no evidence of any hand trenching or even broken rocks. So we decided to look at two of the areas in particular, the Granite North and the Southwest. And the reason was that both areas were very, very hard to prospect. In the Granite North area, big blocky talus, very hard to find smaller vein material underneath that talus, and almost no outcrop. When we drilled in there, well, first of all, we built access trails across it, which doubled up as trenches, found visible gold in place, and then proceeded to drill a number of close-spaced holes to get an idea of where the structures went. And we got some very, very good results, as you can see on the table on the side. Over 7 meters of 6 grams gold, better than 6 grams gold, and 150 grams silver. So, some pretty decent numbers. I think that there's potential in there for even higher grade material. Problem, of course, when you're dealing with particularly gold, and that's what we have here, is very coarse gold in the samples we've seen it in. If you miss it by a centimeter, you may as well miss it by a mile. And if you happen to hit it, then you get crazy high assays. So we need to do even more closely spaced drilling to really define what's going on here. But nice discovery. We definitely plan to follow it up. Southwest Zone maybe is even more exciting. The structure in there is well over a kilometer long. It's been traced intermittently in outcrop. The areas that gaps are areas where there's a lot of talus, and we weren't able to see the veins. Everywhere it's exposed, it's well mineralized. Some places there's actually visible gold. We had over 200 grams gold in one of the chip samples from last year across 1.2 meters. When we drilled into it, we found there was a fairly major fault structure which separated the 2 holes on the western side of our 5 drill holes from the 3 on the other side. And the 2 holes on the west side both hit very good intercepts, very strong structures, several meters wide. In fact, 12 meters wide in the 1 hole, and they were again very good grade, 4.78 grams gold in the 12-meter interval. So very significant widths. What we like about it is that combination of pretty good grade at almost 5 grams, combined with a really strong structure. Very nice mining situation. They're steeply dipping. Lots more drilling to do in here to define where the structure goes and see if we can get that kind of continuity along strike. So again, a very nice discovery. Shifting gears completely, before I leave that, we've got a raft of other really good quality gold projects and silver projects. As we get a little bit further in it, we've just signed a deal where we're selling 3 of our silver prospects to a company, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we've still got a number of other really good projects as well. So well covered on the precious metal side. For copper, our company is focused for a number of years picking up what we think are really strong porphyry targets. And we've just highlighted a few of them. We've got 3 or 4 more beside that I think are very important. I'm not going to read off all the highlight numbers, but the key thing with them is they all have bona fide porphyry style mineralization associated with them. One we're going to focus on a little bit is the GK. It's probably, it has to be one of the best undrilled porphyry targets in the Golden Triangle. I welcome you to go onto the website to look at the actual numbers for some of the others. Richard, you want to slide it forward? So basically, our claim block is right in the center there. It's shown as a box. The Telegraph Creek is just about 10 kilometers to the east of us. The little community of Glenora is directly below us. And in fact, the road between Telegraph Creek and Glenora catches the southeastern corner of the property. As you can see, we're right in the heart of things. Galore and GT and everything are around us. The soil geochem was very impressive. That's gold, 200 being purple and greater than 100 being the lighter purple. Very, very strong anomaly. The stars are all high-grade gold veins that we found, but our real interest here is a porphyry target. And so you can see resistivity and conductivity there on the side. It's about the top of the target's about 300 meters or so below surface. Resistivity low, chargeability high. It coincides with a second order mag anomaly. It's got all the earmarks of the porphyries in that belt. So very interested to put a hole or 2 into that in the near term. There are other porphyry targets on the property. Again, Richard, do you want to slide forward? Okay, talk a little bit about critical metals. People have been rushing around back and forth on these things in the last few years. We've very slowly accumulated good targets as they've come open. Some of them I've waited literally 10 or 15 years to pick up. What we find really astounding about it is the diversity that's there within the area that we're exploring. So we've got a couple right at the top. They're really good tin targets. You don't see many places in North America where we have more than 1% tin across 6 meters. High grade 15% tin across 0.8 meters. That's, you're getting up the kind of thing you see in Bolivia. The Bix, again, a brand new target for us. We staked it or actually acquired it this year. It was staked last spring by a prospecting group. Again, their historic work had discovered some tin, but the work that was done last year by the other party found a brand new area, much stronger soil geochem than the historic area that was looked at, and prospecting within it, again, turned up almost 15% tin. We also got some great vanadium targets, Rod and Van, another tin target, Rye. Bat's got some super cobalt along with very, very high-grade copper and gold. And the Boot, again, it's a drill-confirmed tungsten target. There's many holes over 1%. In fact, some of the holes had stacked horizons with two or three intercept over 1%. The one we've chosen to highlight was almost 2% tungsten with some gold across more than 5 meter width. So very interesting tungsten target. So again, I think as this market progresses, there's going to be a lot of interest in a fairly diverse suite of metals. We're going to an economic recovery that could be sustained for quite a while. Green economy has to have some of these critical metals. The greenest metal of all is copper, so I think we're in a good place there. And again, we've got nice coverage on the precious metal side. So core assets, we've listed 5. We've got significant interest in more than that. Rockhaven, we own just over a third of it. They've got 1.6 million ounces now in combined indicated and inferred. They're going to be drilling more this summer. Expect that to grow, and they've said previously they were heading towards a pre-feasibility, so hopefully that's still the direction they're going. GGL, we're drilling right now on a former producer in Nevada, the Walker Lane. We have almost 39% of that one. They're drilling a number of holes. They recently re-entered some of the underground workings and resampled those. So interesting to see what they come up with. Precipitate started a drill program in Dominican, had to shut it down, but they'll be restarting again soon on a wholly owned property. They're also in a very good joint venture with Barrick, and good position there. We own 19.2%. Silver Range Project Generator is actually a spin out from Strategic. We're staying out of each other's hair. They're working in Nevada, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Again, just under 19% of them. And Terra CO2, we mentioned that briefly at the start. They're working on a disruptive technology for cement production. Also has ramifications for mine reclamation, and we own almost 22% of them. So a couple highlight slides relating to that. For people who know the Rockhaven story, they did a PEA. It had very good economics at $1,450 gold, extremely good at closer to $1,700, and still made money down into the 1100s. We've got a decent IRR at 37% on the 1450 gold, and almost $400,000 NPV. Again, it's an interesting project, and I think that they're going to get some more interesting results this year. GGL, camp scale target, right in one of the sweet spots in Nevada. It's a target that hasn't had any significant work. Believe it or not, the last real effort there was mining that was done in the 1960s. It's had production from the late 1800s through to the 1960s intermittently, shut down during the war in both cases, but produced very, very high grade gold. They most of the time they were mining, they had the 10 gram per ton cutoff, and lots of assays over an ounce. So we're drilling, looking forward to seeing what they left behind and what we can find along strike of where they previously mined. We briefly mentioned Precipitate. They're working right alongside Pueblo Viejo. That's where the ground the Barrick has under option is. 2 other very interesting targets in the Dominican. And again, we're looking forward to seeing what they can come up with their drill bit this year. And Terra CO2. Terra CO2, one of the key things there is that the technology they're working on has a good chance of dramatically reducing the amount of CO2, 60% or more from conventional Portland cement. About 7% of all the world's CO2 comes from cement generation, so it could have an enormous impact and be very disruptive to the market. Their product can be used as a direct replacement for Portland cement, or it can be used as an additive to Portland cement. They've just completed a $9.2 million financing. There was some very, very well named U.S. investors participated in that. Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to say who they are, but the company is moving as fast as they can toward commercialization. That's about all I can really disclose on that one. But in addition to those, we've got a very healthy position in a company called Trifecta Resources. Again, just completed a drill program in Nevada, just under 10% of them. And we're just in the process of acquiring a very large position in Honey Badger Silver. We sold 3 of our Yukon Silver Properties to them. We'll end up with 19.9% of their shares when they complete a financing that's underway. Very, very happy with that disposition. We'll be left with an NSR as well, which is nice. So we're in a very healthy position. About 26% of our current share value is backed by shares in other companies. So that gives you a pretty good backer for that one. So why are we going to make some progress this year? We expect to drill again at Mount Hinton. Still haven't finalized our plans completely, but we definitely will have an aggressive program there again this year. Rockhaven certainly will be drilling again this year. They've got about 4.5 million of flow through that they have to spend sometime soon, so they're going to be pretty aggressive. Precipitate was halfway through a drill program, and they expect them to ramp back up soon. GGL, again, about halfway through their drill program at Gold Point. Lots of results to come out from that one. Terra, just have to keep our fingers crossed as they move forward. Honey Badger, again, can't imagine they bought the properties to sit on them, so they'll be doing some pretty good work this year. And we got to get that closed. We're waiting for exchange approval on it. And then finally, all of our other properties. So this is the sweet spot in the market where the project generation model has greatest value. We've resisted the temptation to sell off a lot of our really good assets at a low point in the market. And now as the market demand for good projects rises, and of course metal prices rise, I think we're going to be able to do a lot of deals. And we're in the process of negotiating 3 of them right now. We'll see if we can close them. But I think that over the next few months and few years that we'll be able to do many, many deals, which is really where the company got the assets to build our portfolio the way we have and to acquire the strong interest in other companies. So that's pretty much everything I have. There's a little bit of information here for contacting Richard or myself. And with that, I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Great. Thank you very much, Doug. So yes, we'll now turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions at any point. We've already had quite a few come in, so I'll just kick it off here. Has Strategic Metals thought of contacting a firm like Goldspot Discoveries to use their artificial intelligence expertise to find other spots to drill on the Mount Hinton land?
We haven't. We have some very good people on staff ourselves, or that we contract out. Haven't brought anybody else in at this point. AI is a very powerful tool, but again, we are still collecting a lot of base information. It's a classic garbage in, garbage out area. If you haven't got really good structural information, if you haven't got really good idea of what the character of the veins is, it's a little hard to apply a lot of artificial intelligence prematurely. So I think one more year we'll be in a position where we can be a little bit more aggressive about that aspect of the program.
Great. Okay. The next one up is what extent have restrictions associated with COVID limited the amount of option agreements that have been completed?
Last year, I think it had a very big impact. It was also, I'm going to go take a step back first. If you go through the chronology, this time last year, gold took a bit of a dip. And I think everybody thought, maybe not that great a year. And when COVID hit, I think everyone really got scared and was very concerned that it was going to shut everything down completely. And then gold prices took off. And fortunately, in Yukon, they created a bubble with BC. So suddenly exploration wasn't that difficult to do. But unfortunately for us in the Yukon, it set us back for a year, because by the time everybody realized that we really were into a very strong gold market, we'd missed the window to really move most of the projects. We're into summer and heading toward fall. Of course, since then, silver's picked up, copper's picked up. Some of the critical metals, again, I referenced tin specifically, but others have really firmed up. So I think people now have got a little bit more time to plan, a little bit more time to position themselves. And of course, with the vaccine and some of the things that are coming, I don't think that COVID is going to be quite as much of a concern, although it's still something we have to think about it. Yukon, though, is ahead of most of the rest of Canada in their vaccination. So hopefully, if the vaccines work for these variants, I think we're going to be in good shape. But we also have a lot of people based in Yukon. We have access to a lot of Yukoners who, because of COVID, are out of the work that they normally do. So we actually last year were able to work pretty much without pause.
Okay. And kind of on the same theme as with the option agreements, could you maybe explain the general logic that you use to structure an option deal with a third party?
Unlike a lot of companies, we don't have one simple model, but we follow. I'll use two models basically. One of the models is where we'll sell the project, and usually in a project sale, we're willing to take a large amount of cash. But more typically, the juniors, if that's who we're doing the deal with, don't have cash. So we'll take a large share interest in the company. That gives us a lot of skin in the game there. But we almost always try to also retain an NSR, typically 2% on precious metals and 1% on other metals, which again gives us some long-term skin in the game. The alternative to that is a model, which is more of an option. Generally, we've no interest in an option that goes to 100%, unless we're getting a lot of cash or a lot of shares out of the deal, because it doesn't leave us with anything other than the NSR. So typically, we try to structure an option deal where we have an equity interest at the end of the game, in some cases 50%, but more typically a minority position, say 30%, is not uncommon. But we want to do a deal that works for the other side, but also gives our shareholders a pretty good return. And I think most projects, they end up back-end loaded unless it's a sale, in which case it's front-end loaded.
Right. Okay. And a couple questions have come in kind of wondering about the cap structure and corporate details a little bit. Do you anticipate having to complete another private placement this year?
I don't think so. We've still got some flow-through money we have to spend from last year. I'll never say no to money. As soon as you do that, you get an offer you can't refuse. But we've got one set of warrants coming due middle of this summer at 40 cents, which is just exactly where we're trading. And then we've got another set at 65 cents, which next summer. We're not really under any pressure to raise money at this point. I don't think we're going to do a drill program at Mount Hinton that's going to break the bank. I'll tell you that. I think we're still in the general data collection, trying to characterize these veins that we found. We've got structures all over the property we haven't even put a hole into it yet, or there's been very limited work on. So we've got a lot to learn about that project before we get into a definitive drill program where it's costing big bucks. And historically, what we've done is we've looked for a strong partner, and we may go that route again here. Or alternatively, we've done a plan of arrangement and spun the company out as a standalone vehicle where we made a very strong discovery. So I wouldn't say that wouldn't be a possibility either. We've done 3 plans for arrangements and dividend and shares out to our investors in the past. So it's still a possibility in the future.
Okay. Just to pick up on the Mount Hinton stream there, do you have a estimate for the number of meters you'd like to drill, like a min or max range, or is that still?
No, it's still being worked on. Somebody asked a question at the start about AI. Right now, we're in the process. There's a very complex relationship with that property between there's at least 3 generations of mineralized structures, and we're pretty sure there's at least 2 directions of mineralized structures, and there's a very, very strong relationship between the host lithologies in the structure. So if you're in the quartzites, you tend to get big, strong veins. If you get into the billites, which form interbeds, they tend to pinch down and deflect. unlike most of the rest of the Keno Hill camp, here we also find that the veins tend to deflect on the gabbro bodies. So the net effect of it is that we're trying to get three-dimensional leapfrog imagery to figure it out, to get the best idea of where we'll encounter areas where the veins are passing through the greatest thicknesses of quartzite. So it goes into that. Lots of good structural mapping to be done before we launch into a big program. I haven't seen the leapfrog models yet. Until we do that, I don't think we can put a number on the meters we drill.
All right. Okay. And again, a couple questions about kind of unlocking value in the portfolio, and a general question. Just wondering on the I guess the cap structure table, the slide with that, it had 27 million for the shareholding value. Does that include the value for the royalties? And if not,
no, there's no valuation given for any of our royalties. There's I think there's a lot of hidden value in this company that doesn't show up on a normal accounting page. No value attributed to any of our royalties. And similarly, there's no value. The accountants don't allow you to carry any value for the assessment that you build up on your claims. And I don't know what our current total is, but the last time we totaled it up, it was over $7 million worth of go forward assessment credit, which means that it's like in most jurisdictions you pay a rental fee or some kind of a leasing fee. In Yukon, you file assessment based on your work, and those credits give us a number of years of that we can hold the property without spending more money, and we've got a lot of built-up value there that really doesn't show up in any balance sheet.
Right. Okay. Couple questions. Wondering about Honey Badger, and just wondering if the type of arrangement there is indicative of a strategic choice to move a bunch of properties at once, or if
well, part of it is we want the company to be successful, to be quite blunt, and we don't want to do a deal that isn't going to give the company a really good shot at some good results. And if you give them one property, there's always the danger, both exploration and geopolitics. It's just one of these things where I'd rather that they had multiple shots. And in this case, they picked 3 of our properties. I think they made good choices, but I think we've got some really good silver properties still left. And other deals, though, we've done standalone. We've done ones where we think a property is so complex or so large that one property is more than enough for a company to work on. There's no single model, like I said, that we're bound to.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, wondering about the I guess with the GT Gold stake that you have, are you have you sold that? Are you hanging on to it until
we sold the GT? We sold the last of our GT stock last week when the takeover was announced. It's possible there'll be a counter bid or something, but I think we bought it at 80 cents, so I think we've done pretty well on it at around 350.
Right. Okay. A couple of questions now on the Terra CO2. One, let's see here. I'm just going to read it out. The cement market is a very large one. Is there a chance that Strategic Stake could become more valuable than Strategic Metals' entire market cap if the technology works out?
I've been telling people that for some time. If it wasn't there were a metals company and a lot of our shareholders that bought us because we're exploring for metals, I would have gone whole hog on that thing. I think it's a potentially incredibly disruptive. Even at 20%, I think that the people who've come in, the dilution that we've taken, we've gained some extremely powerful and extremely technically sound partners to move this thing forward. We've still got some good warrants to strengthen our position some more. We've got independent management in there. We've got a CEO who formerly ran a very large construction company, cement company in Britain. when he was CEO of that division, that it was sold for over $1 billion to a large cement company. So the guy knows what he's doing. Give them their head and see what they can do.
Okay, and I know you said you couldn't say too much about that a bit earlier, but I don't know if you can answer it. Is there any plans to list Terra CO2 on the equity markets?
I really don't know, and I can't say. I'm not a director anymore because I wanted to make sure that if there was a liquidity event, there wasn't any limitations on strategic. But we are bound by confidentiality and whatnot. But I can say honestly that one, I'm not aware of any at this time. But I wouldn't. I can't speak for management.
Right. Okay. Okay, another easy question. Any plans for a proper exchange listing in the U.S. in the future?
Richard and I have talked about it. I think that it's a definite possibility. It's the way things are moving with some of the different trading platforms. I think it's more likely than it would have been, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Richard, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's definitely a trend of companies dual listing, especially with the OTC QB, QX, and whatnot. So it's just a question of, is there a value add there, or is it easy enough for people to trade on the venture? Sort of get a mix of responses talking to various houses about that.
And again, that's one of the things that our relationship with Red Cloud will, if they make a recommendation, I think we'd probably listen to it. Similarly, if there's people in the audience who feel very strongly about it, if it would make your life easier, talk to Richard about it. We'll definitely, it's not off the table.
Great. I guess kind of the last one, maybe you could it might be a good way to kind of end it, is just, looking at your large portfolio, maybe kind of talk a bit about how you plan to unlock value from that and kind of what the main opportunity is for investors going forward.
Okay, well, obviously the best way for us to unlock value is if there's a takeover. Some of the projects we've got, we're willing to, certainly all of our share positions are in play, and if there is an approach, we're certainly not going to say no. We'll try to get the best value we can for ourselves and for the other shareholders of the companies. But absolutely, the takeover is the cleanest. Anybody who's dealt for any length of time in the junior market realizes that liquidity is spotty, shall we say. But certainly if you've got a large position. But if you notice, a lot of our positions now are under 20%, and that gives us a lot more opportunity on spikes to sell some stock. Again, our objective is not to damage the market of any of the companies we're associated with, but if there is a really good liquidity event, somebody makes a major discovery, it'd be nice to capitalize it and take some off the table. But each of the companies, the only one that of the companies now that we have large positions that I carry any role with is GJL. I'm the CEO of that, but we have a very active president. All the other companies have independent boards, independent management, so it unlocks our hands to a large degree. If there's an opportunity for sales, we can capitalize on it. So, and again, if we are talking to the company and there's someone's interested in acquiring a large block, most of the groups know that we have shares available, and if there's a chance for a large block trade, we'll definitely capitalize on that as well.
Okay. We did have a couple questions just come in about, I know you have a large project portfolio, but maybe on some of your main ones, are there any baseline studies in place or environmental studies completed, and what does the permitting look like on them?
Well, that's one of the things we mentioned. A lot of them are already permitted. In Yukon, there's a layered permitting process, and a lot of projects now can be drilled as what they call a class 1. As long as you don't have a crew on site for more than a allowable number of days, generally you can do some drilling. But we've taken a more aggressive approach with a lot of our projects. Richard, you can correct me, but I think it's 15 or 16 that we have on now, but there's always a rollover. Some are expiring. There's other ones we have applications in on. But the bottom line with them is that we permit a lot more holes than we'd ever expect to drill. It's a little bit different than, say, a place like Nevada, where you have to be very time specific and extremely site specific. In Yukon, you can permit on what they call a class 3, and it can cover pretty much the whole property, and it spans an up to 10-year period. So we often will apply for 300 or 400 diamond drill holes, equal number of rotary holes, equal number of reverse circ holes, sort of as much as you'd expect to drill off a deposit. Useful purposes. One, if you make a discovery, you're not then waiting to get permission to to follow it up. Especially useful in a place like Yukon, where you have a limited, about a 6-month exploration season at most. The other thing it does is, if there's any environmental opposition from the First Nations or some biological concern, wildlife concern, it flushes it out right away quick. And if you don't get a lot of opposition to a class 3 permit, there's a very good chance that you're going to be okay to move forward to the development if you make a discovery. So, we try to be fairly proactive on projects and permit ahead. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that was a good explanation on that. So I think that was the last set of questions that came in that we haven't addressed yet. Just checking here. Yeah, I think we hit them all. So with that, I think we'll wrap up, and I'd like to thank both Doug and Richard from Strategic Metals for taking the time to host this webinar today with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you for everybody for tuning in this afternoon.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thanks, Richard.
Sounds good. I'll log off.